My daddy told me that there were a lot more, but nobody would never find them. People come up and ask me, well, who is your daddy? And I always say, my daddy was Pee Wee Gaskins. He was a mass murderer. He was also my daddy, and I loved him. Most people only know the bad parts about Daddy. No one really knows he was a good father. He was loving, he was understanding, and he always wanted what was best for me. At the same time, my father was evil. He was evil. I mean, anybody that can do what he did was evil. This is myself when I was about 6 years old. My daddy wasn't really too much a part of my life when I was small because he was in and out of prison. I don't know why. I would ask Mom, where's my daddy? Why isn't he here? And my mama always said, your daddy's away and, you know, he'll come back one day. But she never told me that my dad was in prison. She never told me any negative about my dad. I was very happy at this time, very happy. I never dreamed I would have to go through what I did. I was born on April 17th, 1952. In a little town called Prospect, South Carolina. The very first thing I remember about my daddy, my dad came to the house and, you know, I was excited to see him because I hadn't seen him in a long time. I remember him going in our house telling Mama to get me and get in the car. I didn't know what was happening. So, you know, we got in the car, and then he locked the doors. But before we could leave, cops pulled in and surrounded him.
Donald Gaskins, stop right there.
They just come flying in there with their guns drawn and was telling Daddy to get out.
Please exit the vehicle with your hands up.
That's when I noticed that Daddy had a gun. He was holding the gun towards my mama and telling my mama not to move.
Donald, what's going on?
Honey, just stay here. Don't move.
I was terrified. I kept holding on to my mama, begging her, I want to get out, Mama, I want to get out.
Daddy, what's happening?
Just be quiet now. Everything gonna be okay.
Kept saying, baby, don't scream, don't say nothing, just sit here. Mama's with you. It's gonna be all right. The law enforcement kept talking to him, asking him to please let us go. And, you know, he kept saying, no, I'm not gonna let him go. You tell me I can leave.
You gotta trust me. Your daddy ain't gonna let nothing happen to you.
Finally, after a couple of hours, he did let me out. He released my mama, and when Mama got out, they just covered the car and drug him out of the car. It was a horrible feeling, seeing him, you know, throw him on the ground and handcuff him. I was crying, I was begging Mama, please don't let him hurt him. And they put him in the back of the police car. I asked Mama what they're doing to Daddy, and she said, baby, he did something wrong. Now they got to punish him. Just like when you do something wrong, you have to be punished. He went to prison for a long, long time, and I didn't see him anymore until I was in the 3rd grade. But Mama never told me why he was running from them. Nobody ever told me why. There's a lot of memories behind this picture. This was the year that the children was picking on me and making fun of me because I didn't have a dad. But then my dad got to come home. I was so happy that my daddy was back. I could go to school and tell everybody, hey, I've got a daddy now. But, you know, they still picked on me and they still bullied me. I remember one specifically day that my dad and I was outside playing ball, and I was really upset because the kids had been really, really mean to me that day.
Honey, is there something bothering you?
No.
He kept saying, what's wrong? And I'd keep saying, nothing, Daddy. I didn't want to tell him because I didn't want him, you know, to feel bad or anything.
I know when something's bugging you, and I think this is the time.
It's the other kids at school.
I said, people's making fun of me at school. They're picking on me, making me cry. He said, wait just a minute, baby. He said, we'll fix that.
You wait right here, okay? Got just the thing.
So he went to the car, and I remember him coming back, and he had a loaded pistol.
You take this.
What's this for?
And he gives it to me. And he tells me to take it to school with me, and if they kept on picking on me, to pop a cap in them.
Next time those kids bug you, you show them this piece.
He showed me how to release the safety, and he said, just point it and shoot. He just told me to go hide it, and don't tell my mama.
You hide that under your pillow, and she won't find it there.
I wanted to do what my daddy told me to do, but yet I knew that it was wrong. It kept bothering me. I mean, I can't do this. I can't do this. I said, I got to tell my mama. She was furious, and she calls the cops, and they come and pick the pistol up. I really don't remember what they did with Daddy, but I didn't see him for a long time. He got out of prison when I was 15. I was married, and I was fixing to have my first child. I thought, well, maybe he's changed. He's going to stay out this time. But that's the very first time I've ever seen my daddy do anything to hurt me. I've always loved pets. I've always loved animals all my life. I did have some cats.
Tabby!
I never put two and two together that, you know, he was killing them. But every time he would come, my cat would disappear.
Tabby, where are ya?
We couldn't find him.
Have you seen Tabby anywhere?
Afraid not.
I was sad, but he said, they don't need to be in the house. Animals supposed to be in the yard.
That's so strange. She hadn't been around all day.
Why do you care?
Daddy didn't like animals, and especially cats. He could not stand cats.
Probably outside where it belongs.
But I didn't know why my cats would disappear till years later. Now, as I look over the years, it could have been that he just needed to kill that cat instead of going out and killing somebody else.
Oh my God, what happened?
People started coming to the house and just disappearing. They never was seen again. This picture was my daddy, myself, and my cousin Janice Faye. And that was my daddy's sister daughter. We were pretty much the same age, and, you know, we were best friends. We just hang around the house and talk girl talk. We told each other everything. When I had my baby, I mean, she came and stayed with me to help me out. My daddy and Janice Faye was always close. You know, I can't imagine him ever want to hurt her. One afternoon, my Aunt Inez and Uncle Lamar came to my house. And they asked me, had I seen Janice? Was she at my house?
Hey, y'all, what a surprise. Daddy's not here right now, but if you want to come in.
Actually, Shirley, we're looking for Janice. We were hoping she was here with you.
And I told them no, that I hadn't seen Janice. She said, well, Janice had been missing for 3 days.
We haven't seen her or heard from her for the past few days. We were thinking maybe she ran away.
I don't think Janice would do that.
Her friend Patricia was missing with her. They were both missing. I was worried because, I hadn't heard anything.
You'll let us know as soon as you hear from either of them, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
So I started asking people, had they seen Janice, and no one had seen Janice.
Hey, honey.
When my daddy came over that weekend, I asked my daddy, I said, Daddy, have you seen Janice?
But have you heard about Janice? No one's heard from her in a few days.
I've heard you.
But he showed no emotions. And he said, no. He said, I've been looking for her. He said, I don't know where she is.
Well, I've been talking to people around town. Nobody has seen her. Could be she just ran away.
But I knew Janice didn't run away from home. Janice wasn't that kind of girl. She would not have worried her mom and daddy like that.
I know something's not right. Janice wouldn't do something like that, Dad, not without telling me first.
And if Janice Day would have run away, she would have come to my house. That's how close we were.
Wherever she is, I'm sure she's doing fine.
Weeks turned into months. No word from Janice. Nobody knew where she was.
Now, let me go see my granddaughter.
Law enforcement said it had to be a runaway. They labeled it as a runaway. Years later, they found Janice Faye in a shallow grave down in Prospect, South Carolina, and they found Tricia Albrook in a septic tank in Sumter. Daddy had murdered them both. At this moment, just looking at my daddy and Janice Faye, it makes me angry. I try to block it out. I'm angry, sad, all in 1 minute. It was very hard to think my daddy had done it. It was evil. Nobody wants to believe that their parents is evil. We moved to a little place called Roper's Crossroads, and I had 2 more children. Daddy was living in Charleston this time. That's when all the people started disappearing. One afternoon, Daddy came to my house, and he brought this woman and baby, which was Doreen and her daughter Robin. They were friends of my daddy's.
Hey, Shirley. Can I ask you a favor?
I fixed them all something to eat, and he was telling me his house had just burnt down, and he said he had nowhere to stay at the time.
Well, Doreen and Robin are in a bit of a tough spot right now. They need a place to stay.
I didn't have enough room for everybody because my kids shared 1 bedroom, and there was my husband and I.
I don't know. I mean, the kids are already sharing 1 room. I don't know if we've got the space for 2 more people.
I told my daddy that I just did not have room for Doreen and the baby, that there was just not enough room.
Yeah. Okay.
He said, well, go ahead and give Robin a bath and put some clothes on her. I'll take her and Doreen to a friend's house, and they can stay there until, we can do better.
You go get the baby cleaned up. I'll talk to Doreen.
Okay.
I put her in the bathtub, and I dressed her in my daughter's little pink sunsuit. I remember telling her that I loved her and that I would see her soon. Doreen gave me a hug, and I told her I was sorry that I didn't have enough room, and she said she understood. Her and Daddy left.
Hi, Daddy.
Hey, sweetheart.
And he was gone for about 2.5 hours. And when he come back, I said, Daddy, I said, where did you take Doreen?
Did you find a place for Doreen and the baby?
Yep, we did.
He said, just to a friend's house. I said, well, who was it?
Which friend?
No one you know.
Oh.
I was raised as a little girl. When an adult tells you something, you accepted what they said. I believed him. I never seen Doreen and the baby again. This is Doreen and her baby Robin. Haven't seen these pictures in a very long time. She was such a beautiful baby. I am so angry with my daddy for doing such an awful thing to this baby. I just feel like, why did they have to go so young? I still feel guilty. I mean, right now, in my heart, I feel like that I'm the reason that they're not here anymore. Why didn't I let them stay with me? Late one night, my daddy came over.
Oh, hey, Shirley.
I went to give him a hug, and I seen that there was blood all over his hands.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
I mean, there was a lot of blood on his hands. I mean, his hands was covered in blood. And I said, are you hurt, Daddy? And he said, no. I said, well, what's that blood doing on your hands?
It's okay. I hit a deer.
He proceeded to say that the deer run out in front of him, and he hit the deer, and I had to drag it off the road.
That's an awful lot of blood.
Yeah. Guess it was dark. So dark I didn't see it.
And around where I stay, deer run out in front of you all the time, and I have hit a couple myself.
Well, do you want me to wash those for you?
No. I'll take care of it at home.
He said, I got to get back home. I got to work in the morning. I'm going to throw these clothes away.
Oh, well, let me walk you out.
Okay.
But I walked him out to the car, and I looked at the car, and there was not a scratch on the car. It's kind of hard to believe that you hit a big deer, that it's not going to mess up your vehicle. But, I never questioned Daddy. I just figured, that's what he said, so I guess that's what happened. I asked my daddy, why did he do this? And he would say that every so often he just had that urge to see blood. He had to see blood. My husband and my daddy, they got along real good. They were very good friends. One day, him and my husband was outside, and he told my husband, he said, let's go kill a deer.
What, right now?
Yeah, right now.
My husband said, are you sure you want to go kill a deer? And Daddy said, yeah, let's go kill a deer. He said, I just want to see some blood.
Got the guns?
People back in South Carolina, go hunting all the time. That's nothing unusual.
Come on. This will be fun.
He was very excited when they were gutting that deer. He was just having a great time doing that. Years later, when I went to see him in prison, he would say that every so often he just had that urge to see blood. He couldn't be still till he seen blood. Walter Neely was my daddy's best friend, and Walter used to come down to my house with my daddy a lot. Well, it was one night, Daddy and Walter came up, and these two boys came up with them. Johnny Knight and Dennis Bellamy, they were half-brothers. I'd never seen them before. I didn't know it at the time, but he had a theft ring going on. They would steal the cars and bring them to my house and hide them. I came out, and I started talking to Daddy.
How's it going?
It's going fine.
And Daddy said that he was just buying cars to fix them up, to sell them, to make extra money.
You boys ready to wrap it up?
It was getting dark. And Daddy said, well, we got to go somewhere. We've got some things we got to do. And they left. Later on that night, maybe about 12:30, Daddy came back by the house.
Hey, Daddy, what are you doing here?
Hey, honey, I didn't mean to wake you.
I said, well, where's the boys? He said, they've already gone back. They drove one of the cars back to Charleston. I remember seeing blood on his hands. And I asked him, I said, Daddy, what'd you do?
What happened? Are you hurt?
No, I hit another deer.
He said, you know how plentiful deers are. He said, another one run out in front of me.
I didn't mean to wake you up. Look.
He said, I got to go. He was in a big hurry. He was rushing. He didn't want to take time to talk to me that night.
You go back to sleep, all right?
He just left.
I'll see you next weekend.
Okay. Good night, Daddy.
Johnny Knight and Dennis Bellamy. I never seen these boys again. Daddy never said anything about them. They found them in a shallow grave in Prospect. But at the time, I wasn't suspicious, because a lot of people came and, would leave and, I would never see them again. So, I really wasn't concerned or anything because I just figured, that they went back to Charleston. One day, my daddy asked me to go into the trailer to clean it. And I said, sure, Daddy. I didn't go in the trailer maybe 2 or 3 times the whole time that it was there. I go in there and I dust and I wipe stuff down. I opened the closet to put something in the closet, and that's when I found the shoes. And it was a great big old pair of brown and white Oxford shoes. It kind of puzzled me because my daddy had a very tiny foot like I do. I said, I know they can't be Daddy's. Daddy's foot's not that big. I knew they were not my dad's shoes. Later that night, I asked him about the shoes.
Daddy, I found these in your closet.
I said, Daddy, whose shoes are those?
They're not yours, are they?
Nope, they're not.
I was getting suspicious. Something was not right.
Well, where'd they come from?
And he told me that somebody gave him those shoes and they were too big. He was going to give them away. Just confusing someone would give him a pair of shoes 4 sizes too big for him.
What's wrong?
It's just something's been bothering me lately.
I really started thinking, it's not normal for people just to disappear off the face of the earth and never be heard from again.
Don't you find it strange how many people have been going missing around here?
Missing? What do you mean missing?
I said, what is happening? I said, people are disappearing and, I never see them again. And he just said, They just don't want to come back around here anymore. They were friends or they moved out of state.
People move on.
Yeah, but it's just that.
Honey, I'm sure everything is fine.
And I said, are you sure, Daddy? And he said, yes. He said, I won't lie to you.
Ain't nothing going on. Let me have these. I'll take care of it.
My daddy had a very quick mind. He had an answer for everything you ever asked him, and he never thought anything about it. Later on, I learned that my daddy had murdered the boy that the shoes belonged to. They were Dennis Bellamy's shoes. I kept saying, no, it can't be her. It can't be her. Please tell me it's not her. People's disappearing, you know, and I can't explain it. Why? And it's happening so much. I started thinking, I guess, a little bit more and wondering. One day, my daddy came up and I saw a lady, and her and Daddy was standing up in the yard talking. Walter Neely, my daddy's best friend, was there. I'd never seen the woman before. I came out the house. Daddy's back was towards me. He said he was going to fix everything. He knew how to fix it.
I can handle it. Don't worry about nothing.
Are you sure? I can't afford any mistakes.
And as I walked up, they hushed talking. It was like in the middle of a sentence, they just stopped talking.
Hi there.
Shirley?
Hey, darling.
I knew he did not want me to hear what they were talking about.
This is a friend of Walter's.
It's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you, too.
I said, what was y'all talking about? I said, y'all look so serious.
We're helping her with a little problem.
Is there something I can do to help?
No, don't mind us. Why don't you go on inside where it's warm?
Then when I walked off, they stayed there for about 45 minutes, and then they left. Later, I found out this lady was dating this rich farmer, and he had gave her a horse and a diamond ring. When they broke up, he wanted his stuff back. And all of a sudden, he's missing. She had hired my daddy to kill her rich ex-boyfriend. My daddy buried him in a shallow grave right behind my house. I never dreamed my daddy was doing any of this. Never. Kim Gellican was a little 13-year-old girl that, this is very difficult to talk about her, I guess. You know, I'm sorry about all of them, but she was a very special one, very special. My daddy brought her down to the house and said that her mom had died and she didn't have nowhere to stay. And he asked me, could she stay with me for the summer? And I really liked the little girl. She kept saying, please let me stay, please let me stay. And I couldn't say no. Kim always called me grandmama. She lived with me for the whole summer. She was like a daughter to me.
Okay. All done and pretty as a picture.
But one day, I started washing dishes, and Kim said, well, Grandma, I'm going next door to get me something to eat. My mother-in-law lived right there across the yard, so she walked out the door.
Are you coming too?
I'll be over in a few minutes.
Don't take too long.
About 15 minutes, walked over to my mother-in-law's and I said, where's Kim?
Have you seen Kim?
What do you mean?
Well, she said she was coming over here for dinner.
She said, Kim's not here. I said, what you mean Kim's not here? She She left the house about 15 minutes ago.
I haven't seen her all day, Shirley.
I was freaking out. I was scared. I was nervous.
We gotta find her.
It was like she just walked out my front door and just vanished into thin air. And so that's when I called my daddy. I said, Daddy, have you seen Kim?
Daddy, I need your help.
He said, I have not seen Kim. I said, Kim wouldn't leave without, telling me, Daddy. I mean, that's one thing I know.
Okay, well, I'll come right over. We'll look for her.
Daddy, we don't have time for that. We gotta call the police.
I said, well, Daddy, I need to call the cops. He said, no. He said, let me see if I can find her first. Don't call the cops. He was very firm. Don't you call them cops. And that kind of raised some suspicion because, I figured he would say, yeah, go ahead and call the cops. We got to find this girl.
I'll be there as soon as I can. Just promise me you won't call anyone.
Okay, but please hurry.
I kept thinking to myself, this is not right. I had to do something. I did call the cops. I reported Kim missing. This was the first moment that I ever went against what my dad said, but I just felt like this was so important, this child missing. And, they kept searching for her, but we couldn't find her. Later on, I found out Kim was buried in a shallow grave right on the other side of my house. My heart's breaking because I'm so close to her. She was like part of my family. She was my daughter. A couple of days later, we were all in the backyard, stacking our wood for the winter, and we heard a bunch of car doors slam. As I turned the corner, my yard was full of law enforcement. I mean, they were everywhere.
What's going on over here?
They said, we have a warrant here to search the house for Dollar Pee Wee Gaskins. He said, have you seen your daddy? And I said, no, sir, I've not seen my daddy.
I don't understand. Why would you need to search the property?
They said that they suspected him in some murder cases. My heart dropped to my foot. Little things that I did not pay any attention to, it started adding up. The blood on his hand, the people disappearing. It was an awful feeling.
I'm going to need to ask you a few questions.
Sir.
They went into Daddy's trailer and they found a pair of brown and white shoes. I remember hearing one of the officers say, these are one of the boys' shoes. Law enforcement asked me, do you know where your dad is right now? And I said, no, sir. They said, if your daddy comes back, he said, you're to call the Williamsburg Sheriff's Department immediately.
Yes, sir.
My daddy was up in the top of the tree during the whole time they was searching everything, watching them. And after all of them left, he came down. And he said, they're just trying to frame me. He said, don't believe what they're saying.
Shirley, I didn't do nothing wrong.
Well, then why are the police out there?
And he said, I don't want to get into it with you right now. I just got to go. I won't see you for a long, long time. And he left.
I don't have time to talk about it, but just tell the kids I love them.
I knew my daddy was running away. I knew he was trying to escape. It is so hard to know that my daddy murdered all these people. It was November the 20th. I'll never forget that day. It was a couple of weeks after he left my house that night, the last time I seen him.
Good evening, ma'am.
And there was 2 officers standing at the door.
Your father has been apprehended and taken into custody?
and the officers had told me that they had unearthed some bodies.
He's already shown us where he's buried the bodies.
I was done. I couldn't think straight. I was crying. I was beginning to realize that this was for real. I remember just starting to cry. It was the hardest thing in my life, I think, to really, accept the fact that my daddy was killing these people. That is Walter Neely. After Kim disappeared, they brought Neely in for questioning because they knew that Walter Neely and Daddy was very good friends. He got scared and he just confessed that him and Dad had killed Dennis Bellamy. They arrested my daddy trying to flee out of Sumter in a taxi cab. That's my daddy right there. He's pointing to a graveside, and this is where they're digging it up. My daddy had his own private graveyard down in a little town called Prospect, South Carolina. I didn't see my daddy again until his trial. This picture is where they were taking my daddy into the courthouse to be tried. They found my daddy guilty, and he was sentenced to death. I just started crying. And I couldn't stop crying. My daddy told me that there were a lot more, but nobody would never find them. He said he would go to his grave. He would never tell anybody where the rest of them was. The only one that he ever told me that he was really sorry about was my cousin Janice Faye. But that was the only one that he ever had any regrets about. I feel so ashamed that my daddy did this. I just wish I could change some of this. But I can't. The last day that I got to see Daddy on death row, I told him I loved him very much and I would always love him. And he said, "How can you forgive me?" I said, "Daddy," I said, "I forgive you for everything you've done." I said, "You're my daddy and you are so special to me. I'll always, always love you. Nothing's gonna change that." And then he said, "I love you with all my heart." And that's the last words my daddy ever said to me. Every time I tried to talk about it, I would, break down. But I went to a therapist, and once I got it all talked out, I finally started to heal. What helped me more than anything else through all this here, I went into foster care. I started taking care of other kids. I feel like that, if I can just shed a little bit of love and a little bit back into the world that he took out, maybe things won't be so bad. I know that he was an evil person. I mean, anybody that can do what he did was evil. But you can't just turn love off and on like a spigot. You love somebody, you love them. And nothing will ever change there. I do love my daddy, and I'll love him for the rest of my life.
The gruesome crimes of Ed Gein horrified 50s America. When his rural home was searched on the 16th of November 1957, the police uncovered a Gothic house of horrors. As well as the remains of 2 missing local women, they found an array of human bones, skulls, and skin that had been fashioned into furniture and clothing. The town of Plainfield was in complete shock. One of the residents who remembers the effect Gein had on Plainfield is Max Harrington.
I think shock would be the biggest thing that we could use to describe the atmosphere in the community. We were still pretty much a clannish community at that time, and a lot of the families that were here had always been here. It took your breath away, it was shocking. It still is. People don't do things like that in a small town on a normal day. That's just not part of what we grew up with.
The story of this twisted killer begins over a century ago. Ed Gein was born in La Crosse County, Wisconsin, on the 27th of August 1906. By the time he was 8 years old, his parents moved Ed and his older brother Henry to Plainfield.
Well, the Gein family moved to Plainfield from La Crosse, Wisconsin, partly because the mother of the family, the matriarch, Augusta, had decided that La Crosse was a kind of Sodom and Gomorrah-like hellhole, and she didn't want her children to be corrupted by all the immoral influences of the big city. Needless to say, La Crosse was not a particularly big city, but they moved to a remote farmhouse about 6 miles west of, you wouldn't necessarily say downtown Plainfield because there was no uptown Plainfield.
It's not the largest city in the state of Wisconsin, but it's plenty big enough for those of us that live here.
Plainfield was a very remote, isolated, featureless little village. A state guidebook at the time described it as totally nondescript. The population was very small, never more in its history, I think, than 700 or 800 people. Probably the entire population of the village could have fit into a New York City apartment building.
The Gein's 150-acre farm was located on the corner of Archer and 2nd Avenue. Ed rarely got to leave the property and socialize with other children.
His mother, Augusta, is a very domineering character indeed. She is a devout Christian, and she has some very extreme ideas about sin and about morality. And she drums into her sons that they're not to socialize with anybody outside of the family because all of the people around them in the local town are sinners, they're evil, all the women are whores. And so she creates this very insular family environment where they're quite isolated from the rest of the community, and that has a really significant impact on them.
Gein seemed to have been very friendless whenever he would make some kind of friend. On those rare occasions, when he would try to make a school friend and bring home a school friend, the mother would immediately find some reason to disapprove of the other child and forbid Ed from ever bringing him home. So he grew up again in a state of complete social isolation.
And Gein's relationship with his father was also far from perfect.
Well, the father, George, was an alcoholic. He appeared to have been somewhat free in his use of physical punishment, but mostly the picture that emerges of George is of, kind of a hapless individual who was, as all three male members of the family were, under the thumb of his wife, and again, who was regarded as much as anything else as a sort of obstacle or impediment to the household.
As Ed entered adolescence, his life became even more insular.
He dropped out of school when he was around about 12 or 13 to work on the family's farm. And he was considered to be a bit of an oddball. He was quite a loner and he enjoyed quite solitary pursuits. So he really quite liked reading and was quite a prolific reader. So he was somebody who didn't really fit in, but worked incredibly hard to keep the family farm going.
On April 1st, 1940, Ed's father, George, died of heart failure, leaving 33-year-old Ed, his brother Henry, and Augusta alone on the family farm.
Ed's older brother, Henry, seemed to have freed himself a little more emotionally and psychologically from Augusta's dominance, and even apparently on a couple of occasions expressed some criticism of their mother and the hold she was exerting over both of them. So Ed, who, at least on a conscious level, worshipped his mother and saw her as a kind of goddess who could do no wrong, appears to have been both a little shocked, that Henry would find any cause to criticize Augusta, and possibly built up some kind of animosity toward Henry for that attitude.
Ed became a handyman, doing odd jobs around Plainfield to help with living expenses on the farm.
We used to see Ed occasionally. I'd see him around town, and then he was always a friendly person, quiet, friendly, usually had a joke to tell. He always had time to say hello and ask after how you were. A person who you would never suspect of anything other than being a decent sort of person.
In May 1944, death would hit the Gein family once again, but this time in more suspicious circumstances, after a brush fire on their farmland got out of control.
Ed and Henry were out there trying to put out the fire, and they got separated, and Ed could not locate Henry, and he went and got help. But then after getting this help, he led the other people directly to where Henry's body lay, and there were some mysterious bruises on Henry's head. Anyway, the official verdict of the medical examiner was that Henry had died of a heart attack while fighting this fire, and had injured his head when he fell and hit a rock. But afterwards, when Gein's crimes were uncovered, there was a lot of talk that perhaps Henry had been a victim of Ed's, that Ed, in fact, had killed Henry partly because of Henry's criticism of Augusta.
The impact upon their mother, Augusta, was phenomenal. She really broke down about Henry's death, and she had a stroke.
But of course, by then, the psychic bond between Augusta and Ed was so incredibly intense already. Evidence seems to suggest that with the other two men out of the way, Ed reveled in having his mommy alone to himself.
But Gein's mother never really recovered from her stroke, and their time alone only lasted for 19 months.
Ed nursed her very, very diligently, even apparently would get into bed with her on occasion and stroke her and comfort her. And then she seemed to recover, but then she suffered another, this time fatal stroke.
Augusta Gein died on December the 29th, 1945. 39-year-old Ed was completely devastated.
Because his mother was so domineering, I think she really did stunt his development, and he almost got stuck at a kind of teenage adolescent phase in his life. So looking at how he behaved at the funeral, he was in his 30s at this time, and he was reported to be wailing like a small child. So he hasn't got that kind of emotional control that's associated with 30-something men.
The death of his mother left him completely isolated, living in this increasingly ramshackle, dilapidated farmhouse that he ceased to take care of whatsoever. Augusta was his only real human contact. So it was at that point, that Gein embarked on these various outrages that would ultimately make him this notorious figure in American crime.
Alone and isolated from the rest of society, Gein spiraled out of control. Over the next 12 years, he became obsessed with recreating the world he'd shared with his mother. It would lead him to a series of dark and disturbing crimes that would eventually culminate in murder. After losing his mother, Augusta, in late 1945, Ed Gein began to live a lonely life, isolated from the rest of society. The residents of Plainfield, Wisconsin, had no idea that the man who was often seen paying his respects to his mother in the local graveyard was hiding a dark secret behind the closed doors of his farmhouse.
One of my summer jobs when I was a student in high school was mowing the cemetery, and two of my buddies and I, that was about a 4-day job for us to mow that. And we would see Ed out there on occasion. He'd come out, and if he saw us working, he'd always come over and say hello. And again, sometimes have this little story to tell. And he was very good about stopping to see his mother's grave.
I think neighbors saw him as an odd, very meek, somewhat simple-minded person, but one who was always willing to pitch in when some farm work needed to be done or some chore needed to be run for them. But they, of course, had no sense of the life that he was pursuing inside that incredibly creepy, dismal world of his own farm.
It was a world that 51-year-old Gein had managed to keep hidden away until the winter of 1957.
November 16th, 1957 was the first day of deer hunting season that year. And it was a day when basically the entire male population of the town would have been out in the woods hunting deer, as Ed knew. Ed drove into town to the Warden hardware store. The Warden hardware store was owned by a woman named Bernice Warden.
I knew Mrs. Warden quite well. She and her family ran the hardware store here for many years, and almost everybody in the community knew Mrs. Warden.
Ed had kind of been hanging around the store for a couple of weeks previously. He had developed something of an obsession with Bernice Warden.
He would talk to her, he would ask her out, and it was quite clear that she really wasn't that interested in him.
Ed came in, asked to buy half a gallon of antifreeze, which Bernice Warden poured out for him and wrote out a receipt. He went back out to his truck, then came back inside and asked her to see a rifle that was in the window. When Bernice Warden turned her back to him, he shot her in the back of the head and then loaded her corpse in his truck and drove back to his farm.
Gein had murdered the 58-year-old woman in broad daylight.
It was deer season, so deer season is like a ghost town around here. Everybody, in those days especially, everybody was out hunting. And she wasn't even missed for some hours. And when someone reported that she wasn't at the store, well, that was her son, of course.
Later that day, Frank Warden returned from the woods and found the store empty. His mother wasn't there. He was very perplexed by that. And then he saw a trail of blood across the floor of the hardware store, and not only realized, that some foul play had occurred, but immediately suspected Ed Gein, because Gein had been kind of bothering his mother for the past few weeks.
And there was one piece of evidence that confirmed Frank Warden's suspicions to the police.
When they went to search the place, they found the receipt for the antifreeze that was in Ed's name. And they just worked backwards, saying that he was probably the last person to see her alive, but they didn't suspect that he was as deranged as he was.
One set of lawmen went out in search of Gein. They found him having dinner at a neighbor's house, and they arrested him. And then another set of lawmen went out to Gein's farmhouse. And that's where they made these discoveries that really sent shockwaves around the world.
On a dark winter's night, officers from the Plainfield Police Department began to search the Gein farm for Bernice Worden.
They couldn't get into the house, so they went around back and entered into what was called the summer kitchen, which was a little shed outside.
This property didn't have any electricity, so they were pretty much fumbling around in the dark with flashlights. But I don't think they expected to find what they did find there.
One of them turned on his flashlight and beamed it around and saw this object that was hanging from the rafters, which at first they thought was some kind of gutted deer. Although it didn't look like a deer, they realized to their incredible horror that it was a woman's corpse that was hanging by its heels and been completely gutted.
She'd been strung up, essentially, and she was slit from her sternum to her pelvis. So she'd essentially been butchered by Ed. It really was the most grotesque thing that these officers had ever come across.
And they realized they had found the body of Bernice Worden. And of course, both of them just stumbled out in horror and vomited, at the sight of this thing.
When the news spread across the town, the residents of Plainfield were in complete shock.
When I heard of his arrest, I couldn't believe it. I was sure they had the wrong person because it just didn't seem like anything that they were telling us was the Ed that we all knew. Yeah, it was a Saturday night. We were at a dance, and the story went through there, and everybody said, "I don't believe it," but it was true.
After finding the butchered body of Bernice Worden in a shed at Ed Gein's farm, the police officers moved their search into the main house.
He boarded up some areas of the family's home to maintain the rooms as his mother had left them. And in other parts of the property, he just started hoarding things. You would have trash and rubbish build up, and it really became a complete hovel.
He'd reverse the normal process of trash disposal, and instead of taking all his garbage to the dump, would go to the dump and bring it into his house. It was just this incredible chaos of trash and garbage.
But there was more than just household waste.
Amid all that wreckage, they discovered these incomprehensible, unspeakably awful objects that had been fashioned out of human body parts. There were chairs that were upholstered in human flesh.
There was a lampshade made of human skin. They found the remains of 12 human heads, gloves made out of the skin from a corpse's fingers.
There was a jar containing human noses. There was a box full of female genitalia, some of which had been painted and tied with ribbons. There was a belt fashioned out of female nipples. There was a shade pull made of human lips.
They found all types of things that belonged to people that were no longer people. And it was shocking. I mean, you think of this happening, now it'd still be shocking. But back then, in a small, tiny rural community, it was it was breathtaking.
Ed Gein's farmhouse was the habitation of a literal ghoul. Somebody who had been living amidst these horrific relics of human dismemberment. It was a madhouse.
Gein's fascination with death and corpses had been growing ever since his mother had died 12 years previously.
Ed had always enjoyed reading. It was quite a solitary pursuit, so that's not particularly surprising. But after the death of his mother and his brother, he started to read an awful lot more, and his tastes in literature really did span quite a wide spectrum. He read pornographic magazines, he read medical textbooks, and he developed a particular interest in Ilse Koch, who worked at one of the Nazi concentration camps and collected patches of skin of the prisoners who were detained there. And I think all of this was fueling a very active imagination. So he's developing these obsessions and these interests, and he's quite skilled as a farmhand at this point in time. He knows how to slaughter animals, he knows how to prepare carcasses. He's from a community that's very much into its hunting and its fishing. So at some point, reality and fantasy are going to collide.
As the search of the farmhouse progressed, officers found that the grotesque collection of body parts became even more disturbing.
Among the most hideous of all the items were human skin masks that were hanging from the wall of his bedroom, the faces of women that had been flayed from the skulls and that had been preserved. Some of them had lipstick applied to them and that had been hung on the walls as decorations. And then, most notoriously, there was a skin suit that Ed had crafted out of the upper torso of a woman and the leggings of a woman. And apparently, as he later confessed, he would put on this skin suit and put on one of the female skin masks and caper around in his yard, pretending to be his mother.
Gein's macabre collection had been acquired from the very same cemetery where his mother's body lay.
2 years after the death of his mother in 1947, he starts grave robbing. So he's going into a local burial ground, he's digging up bodies, and he's taking things from the bodies. Now, he's not taking jewellery or items of any value, he's actually taking body parts. It really is an absolute house of horrors. So what started off as an interest, which was confined to the pages of a book, has now become a reality behind the doors of this rather bizarre house. So what he's doing in a really grotesque way is trying to bring his mother back to life in some way, shape or form, because he was just so dependent upon her for a sense of his own identity.
And the search wasn't over yet. Officers would soon discover, inside a paper bag in Gein's home, the severed head of a woman who'd been missing from Plainfield for over 2 years. In November 1957, police in the small rural town of Plainfield, Wisconsin, were searching the home of 51-year-old Ed Gein. They had already found the body of missing hardware store owner Bernice Warden and a variety of other human remains, most of which had been fashioned into furniture and clothing. It was a collection that Gein had accumulated over the past 12 years.
I think that the real tipping point for Ed Gein was when his mother and his brother died, because even though this family was very intense and rather extreme in its beliefs, it was still a check on his behaviour. There was still that informal surveillance over him, and I think that kept him contained. But once he was on his own, he was free to ruminate and fantasise, and his behaviour was only going to escalate.
You know, it's like some crack opened up, you know, in the civilized part of his head, and all this weird, archaic stuff going back to the days, you know, when our species did engage in these bizarre, unspeakable rituals, you know, flooded out and took possession of him.
With Gein in custody, officers continued to scour his home, and they were about to make another startling discovery. A local woman who'd been missing for almost 3 years.
There had been a female tavern keeper named Mary Hogan, who ran this roadside tavern outside of Plainfield, who had disappeared very, very mysteriously.
In those days, we had 18-year-old bars where teenagers could go in and have beer. And she ran one of those. It was a kind of a modest place, to be very kind. But she disappeared before I was old enough to frequent those establishments.
When she went missing, he'd said some rather bizarre things. He said to one of the townspeople, "Oh, she's not missing, she's up at the house." But because he was a bit of a misfit and because he was a bit weird, people didn't really take what he said very seriously at all. So that one was allowed to slip under the radar until this grisly discovery a few years later.
In searching through Gein's House of Horrors, the investigators opened up some receptacle and saw this face, and pulled it out and realized it was Mary Hogan's, that she had been another one of these victims.
Gein had murdered Mary Hogan on December the 8th, 1954, 3 years previous to killing Bernice Worden.
I think there was some sense in which he associated her with his mother. You know, she almost seemed to be like the shadow side of his mother. And I think in killing her, again, he was both enacting some kind of homicidal rage toward his mother, but I think also there were times when he just ran out of suitable female corpses and had to make his own.
Back at the local police station, it was time for Ed Gein to start talking.
Well, for the first day after his arrest, I think Ed felt like a bit of a fish out of water. He didn't quite know how to react. But he did start talking after about 24 hours. And the first thing he said was that he wanted an apple pie with a slice of cheese on it. And that really does show the emotional immaturity of this guy. And when you've got somebody whose development stops at a particular point, they don't develop those complex emotions that enable them to empathize with other people or to think through the consequences of their actions. So what you've got here is a teenage boy in a man's body, and he was capable of some really terrible things.
He was subjected to a very lengthy interrogation. He freely confessed to the murders of Bernice Worden and Mary Hogan. When the police first broke into Gein's house and discovered this crazy mass of body parts, their first assumption was Gein was a serial killer. It was only during his interrogation that he revealed that they were taken from the corpses he had dug up from the local cemetery. And people, in a way, had a harder time believing that than that he was a serial killer. That seemed like totally beyond the bounds of belief for a whole variety of reasons.
Human bodies are traditionally buried 6 feet underground. That's a lot of digging, that's a lot of work to get to them through packed earth. He'd need spades, picks. He'd need to be strong, and he'd need, one assumes, to do it at night because he'd need to be undisturbed.
I'm not sure he did recognize that what he was doing was wrong. You know, there are some necrophiles who think, well, I wasn't really hurting anybody. You know, they were dead anyway.
Gein confessed to investigators that between 1947 and 1952, he'd regularly visited the local cemetery after dark.
He would often follow the local newspapers and read the obituaries, and when some middle-aged or elderly woman who bore some vague resemblance to his departed mother died and was buried, he would apparently go out to the cemetery at night while the soil was still fresh and easily dug up, and exhume these coffins and remove the bodies, and sometimes take the entire corpse back to his farmhouse, sometimes just take parts of the corpse back to the farmhouse and leave the rest there.
Investigators decided to dig up some of the graves to see if Gein was telling the truth.
When they uncovered them, they discovered that the coffins had been broken into, and the bodies were missing, or, you know, there were just parts of the skeleton remaining there.
He admitted to grave robbing 9 corpses, but the maths didn't quite add up because the police had found 12 human heads in Gein's property, and he'd only admitted to 11 offences against separate people. So the numbers never really added up properly. So there's always been questions over that.
Ed Gein's crimes were in the late 50s, 1957. The state of forensic science in those days was far less than we have now. Things like DNA simply didn't exist as a tool, so identification could potentially be very difficult, and I would suspect in certainly some of the body parts simply impossible.
There was no doubt that Gein specifically targeted females. All the graves he desecrated belonged to women.
I think he was both trying to rebuild his mother, but I also think that he was taking revenge on his mother. That kind of love and hate of mommy were manifested both by his attempting to bring her back from the dead, but also perpetrating, you know, these atrocities on the corpses of female bodies.
It's been reported that Gein did in fact try to return Augusta to the family home after her funeral.
There's some indication that he initially tried to exhume his mother's corpse. Apparently Ed missed the presence of his mother so much. He wanted to bring her back and somehow, in his madness, reconstitute her in his household. He couldn't get to his mother's grave because the soil in that part of Wisconsin is very sandy, and many coffins are buried within concrete vaults to prevent the sand from collapsing on them. And that was apparently true of Augusta Gein.
In November 1957, Ed Gein was charged with the murder of Bernice Warden. The media descended on the tiny town of Plainfield, Wisconsin.
What kind of a man did you know him as? Well, a man, he's a nice man, just like anybody else. The only difference I'd say in the man, he seems to be a little hot.
Well, the cultural context of the Gein case is quite an interesting one, because I think this was one of the first cases that gathered an awful lot of attention. There was a media circus that developed around this because nothing like this had ever really happened before. It was something completely new.
It spread very quickly through the local newspapers and then through the Associated Press and so on to the national media. Plainfield, which had always existed from the time of its founding in happy obscurity, suddenly found itself to be the center of national and even international attention.
It was just an exasperating time, and then we were inundated by nosy Nellies that all thought that, boy, I got to go drive by that old farmhouse. And then we became I don't like to use the word chaotic, but a very unsettled community for a while.
Plainfield was suddenly famous, and famous for the most horrifying of reasons, that it was the home of America's most notorious psychopath.
The entire community was stunned. For the previous decade, they'd been living in the same town as a real-life bogeyman. It would now be down to the courts to decide whether or not Ed Gein was insane. In the winter of 1957, the town of Plainfield, Wisconsin, was still reeling from the news that local odd-job man Ed Gein had murdered 2 women and desecrated the graves of many more. On November the 21st, 1957, the 51-year-old pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity at his arraignment at Waushara County Court, and it was declared that he was unfit to stand trial.
There were indications that Ed was clinically psychotic, that he had hallucinations, that he heard voices, or the trees would start talking to him. Most serial murderers are not psychotic, but Ed seemed to have the symptoms of some form of psychosis.
Gein was sent to the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane in Warpen, Wisconsin, which is now a maximum security prison. 70 miles away in Plainfield, the community was trying to get back on its feet, but the shadow of Ed Gein lingered over the town.
In 1958, the property that Gein had lived in was due to be auctioned off. And I think the last thing that local people wanted was for this to become some kind of shrine, some kind of attraction for people who were morbidly fascinated. So a few days before the auction, the property was burned to the ground, essentially.
A lot of talk of arson. They had been cleaning up around there and had been burning trash up around that particular day too. So then that was an excuse of a possible cause that maybe the wind got something in the evening and got some live embers in there. A lot of the neighbors weren't too happy with having talk of it being turned into a museum of sorts, but there were a lot of stories. Anyway, it's gone. People still kept coming though, even after the house was gone. For a year, still had people coming to drive by the empty lot where the house used to stand.
In March 1958, the car which Gein used to transport the bodies of his victims was bought at an auction for over $700 by a carnival operator who charged fascinated Americans 25 cents for a photograph at a macabre sideshow.
I think what we're seeing here is the rise of the serial killer consumer culture. People are fascinated in these kind of cases, and some criminologists refer to this as wound culture, that we're essentially drawn to the trauma and the suffering of other people, and we're drawn to the artifacts that exist around these cases.
Gein remained in the Central State Hospital for 11 years until doctors determined that he was finally fit to stand trial for the first-degree murder of Bernice Worden. The hearing lasted for a week, and on November the 14th, 1968, Judge Robert Gulmar had reached a verdict.
He was tried and found guilty of the murder of Bernice Worden, but then he was judged insane and stuck back in the mental institution.
I think that was possibly somewhere where he may have thrived, because he had structure, he had a routine, he had people watching over him and looking after his needs.
Forensic psychologist Dr. Helen Morrison interviewed Gein during his time in hospital.
I was working at that time as a staff psychiatrist, and I was covering all the units. And when I was asked to go over to see this person, I went over to see it, and I saw Ed Gein. He was not at all coherent. He was such a little person that I found it hard to picture him as the person who'd committed all these homicides. He lived there very peacefully. He never caused any problems, never had any type of behavioral thing, no type of I guess you could say, consequence for bad behavior.
Gein's quiet nature in hospital was in stark contrast to the monster Helen had heard so much about.
I received a letter from one of his neighbors who used to be a friend of his. She was a little girl, and she remembers going over to his house, and he would serve soup and everything. Well, it turned out the soup bowls were the skulls of many of his victims, and people never knew it.
On July the 26th, 1984, Ed Gein died of lung cancer, aged 77. He was buried next to his mother on the Gein family plot at the same cemetery which he so often desecrated during his career of horror. Gein has left a lasting impact on the small community where he committed his ghoulish crimes.
We really wouldn't care to have that be our claim to fame. You know, we've turned out lots of doctors and architects and some really good people out of our schools here. We're very proud of them. We'd rather be known for a tremendously good population than to be credited for only one issue.
But just like the carnival operators of the 1950s, people continue to try and get their hands on grisly souvenirs related to Gein.
In the year 2000, somebody was found to be selling parts of the gravestone that had been erected at Ed Gein's grave. For people who are fans of the serial killer cult, this was just the gift that kept on giving.
Well, they keep putting up headstones, and the headstones keep disappearing. There's a whole category of collectible that has come to be known as murderabilia. And Gein relics are particularly prized among people who collect that kind of morbid relic.
Over 60 years since the horrific crimes, Gein has grown into a notorious figure in American folklore, a killer of almost mythic proportions.
The two things that are fascinating about Ed Gein is the fact that he only, as far as we know, murdered 2 people, which is a lot less than many infamous killers, but he's had such a huge legacy in films, books, music. He seems to have become a sort of pop culture murderer.
At the time the Gein crimes were being revealed in the press, there was a writer of pulp horror named Robert Bloch who had moved to Wisconsin to be with his wife's family. And at some point, when Gein was being interviewed by various psychiatrists, all these headlines in the papers were trumpeting the fact that Gein had been motivated by these deranged Oedipal conflicts, that he was this desperately sick mama's boy, who was perpetrating these atrocities on middle-aged women, who reminded him of his mother. And this caught the attention of Robert Bloch, who decided this could potentially make the basis of a good horror novel, and that became the book Psycho. In the book Psycho, Norman Bates, actually, after he's arrested, compares himself at the end of the book to Ed Gein. So the connection is made very, very explicit there in the book. Anyway, Psycho, as we know, turned into one of the great classic horror movies of American cinema. If you look at horror movies before then, there were all these Eastern European monsters, Frankenstein and Dracula and the Wolfman, or else they were aliens from outer space. With Psycho establishes, and, Ed Gein establishes, this quintessentially American figure of horror, the ordinary middle American guy who turns out to be this monster in disguise. And then, of course, Gein becomes the basis for Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and later on for Thomas Harris's character Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. So Gein has this very, very direct influence on American horror cinema.
But Gein's crimes were not fictional, they were very real, and he remains one of the most infamous murderers in U.S. history.
We think of Gein as this notorious American serial murderer, but in many ways he doesn't really fit that profile. For example, he wasn't a sexual sadist in the way John Wayne Gacy or Ted Bundy were, or Jeffrey Dahmer. He wasn't driven by that particular form of deviance.
I think he was brought up in a vacuum that created the conditions for someone who would go on to do evil things. So whilst most people are shocked and repulsed and absolutely horrified at some of the things he's done, because he didn't have that filter and that check on his behaviour, he was able to escalate to a level of evil, I think.
Evil is something that, professionally, people don't believe in evil. But I truly believe that he was evil. I think there are people who would like to say that the devil got into him and made him do these awful things, but I think he was born evil.
The Ed I knew was not an evil person. He did things that normal people do not do. And there's just no doubt about that. And to kill two people is certainly not a person who you would really like to invite to your neighborhood party. But yeah, he was, there was something in his head that, didn't click right.
Ed Gein's crimes are the stuff of genuine nightmares. The man with an unhealthy obsession with his mother brazenly murdered two women and kept a bizarre collection of gruesome keepsakes inside his house of horrors. He truly deserves to be remembered as one of the world's most evil killers.
I'm trying to make sense of life.
One interview, take one, Mark.
It's a very heavy feeling. The pain, the hurt. It's hard to come out of the pain. It's hard to cope with it. I think some kind of way I detach because I'm like, I don't want to break down. I don't want to cry. So I think I just try to keep it, I just try to keep it together the best that I can. I don't want to cry. I feel like I've cried so much, you get tired of crying. Just don't want to cry anymore. You just want pain to go away. And it never does. You just learn how to cope with it. You just don't want to hurt anymore.
I can't believe I did this, man, but I knew once I got to a certain point, I couldn't turn back.
He's just most craziest, demonic type person to do something like this.
A lot of people gonna be shocked, man. I knew I was gonna do something, and I That was it.
He was a monster in disguise. I just think something just wasn't right with him.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. No one would understand.
When I first met Greg, it was at my dad's church. I was 14. I always had a crush on him. He's 10 years older than me. After church, there was like a little bench area, so sometimes I'll sit back there and like talk to him after church and stuff like that. But, you know, he was at our church for a while and then he was gone. At that time, I didn't know why. I do remember, like, over the years, you know, hearing that he was incarcerated, things like that, but I never, you know, knew what for. And then I didn't see him again until when I was in my 30s. When my dad became a pastor, he became involved with parolees, and that's how he reconnected with Greg. My dad helped Greg reintegrate when he got out of prison.
He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to have understanding.
I was at church, and I remember he was probably sitting like a couple rows ahead of me. Still had that same, you know, how those little butterflies come up, the same thing again. I'm like, oh God, I'm like, he's, you know, still handsome.
He reveals deep and hidden things.
And then I talked to him after church, and that's how things started progressing.
Greg,
Yeah?
it's been a while. You probably don't remember me.
First, he didn't even know who I was until I told him.
Oh my God, Faith? Oh, wow.
And then he was like, oh, you know, you're all grown up now and things like that.
Hey, Mom, we're hungry.
I had 2 children, and I was single. Kara and Chadney, I think they were about 8 and 10 at the time.
So you're a mom now?
Yeah. Kara, Chadney, this is Greg.
Gregory, he was really good with Kara and Chadney. He definitely seemed charming and acted like a gentleman. I definitely felt like I couldn't be in a relationship with Greg. Eventually, I let him move in with me, and things were going good. To be honest, I didn't ask my dad about any of like the parolee things. I know there are people that, you know, that have a past and they change or they try to have a better life for themselves. But if I knew the whole story, I wouldn't have even given him a chance of dating him. I just would have went the other way, you know. When Greg and I started our relationship, it just felt normal. I knew at that point he had been incarcerated. He didn't go into detail. And I remember trying to find out like more information. I couldn't find anything. The story that I was aware of and everyone in the community knew was that it was just self-defense, and that's what everyone believed. We didn't really talk about it that much until I asked him what happened.
Do you mind if I ask you something?
He didn't really go into like detail too much.
What do you want to know?
I want to know what happened.
Gregory and his ex-wife, they were arguing and pushing each other.
Things got out of hand.
And when he pushed her, she fell and hit her head. And she did die. But he just said it was self-defense. He was just trying to keep her from hitting him. And I thought that was the truth. I didn't really know what to make of it. I never really pushed him. I just felt like he just wanted to put it out of his mind. I think I just was like, okay, he doesn't want to talk about this.
Could we just drop it?
Sure, of course.
I probably should have dug a little bit more, but I guess at that time I didn't want to overwhelm him. I didn't have any reason not to believe Greg. Greg just really seemed laid back, quiet, like he wouldn't hurt a fly. I also felt like if it was like really bad, they wouldn't let him out. In the beginning, I just thought that Greg was, you know, quiet, maybe a little shy, introverted. I didn't think he was keeping any secrets from me. Looking back, I definitely felt like there were signs. I just didn't recognize them. At one point, I do remember feeling like a little uneasy, but I didn't know why. I definitely felt like Greg was very quiet, like too quiet. I always felt like that was weird for someone not to want to talk at all. Even with people that are introverted or shy, they talk a little bit. But with Gregory, it wasn't something that he did that gave me a bad feeling. It was just like a thought, maybe an intuition or a gut feeling. And like something wasn't right, like the vibe was off, and I didn't really know what it was.
I'm gonna go to the kitchen and grab some drinks. You want some?
His personality would change, like one time we're sitting on the couch. I just go in the room for a second, come back, and he's just like in a whole nother mood. And I'm like, well, what happened from the time I left the living room to go to the bedroom and come back?
You okay?
Fine.
I think that was probably like the beginning of whatever was going on inside of him, or him trying to control how he really was.
Did I do something?
No.
You gotta talk to me.
Didn't I say I'm fine?
I just remember having a feeling like, something's wrong. I don't really know how to describe it, but I couldn't see anything wrong. I just knew I had that feeling. That's basically when I broke everything off with Gregory. I didn't really know what I was gonna do, but I just knew at that time like something didn't feel right. Gregory and I went our separate ways, and shortly after that, I found out I was pregnant with Coy. Once I got pregnant with Coy, that's when I gave it another chance. Gregory definitely seemed like he was ready to commit. He seemed happy and seemed like he was ready to do this. The first time I remember seeing Greg's temper is when he was hanging the curtain rod.
Come on.
When he moved in with me, I asked him to hang some curtains for me. And while he was trying to hang the curtains, he was having a hard time.
Damn it!
I didn't look at it as if it was a red flag or anything, but I remember Kara saying to me, like, Mom, why is he so angry?
Faith bring this stupid, useless junk home, and now I'm stuck with it.
And I just said, well, sometimes when people, are trying to do things and they get frustrated, they handle things a different way.
You seem so mad.
To me, it just seemed like a normal thing, but Kara saw something different.
People respond to things differently. He's just a little frustrated, that's all.
She saw something more than what I saw. His anger was showing through, and I just couldn't see it.
What? Y'all gonna stand there and watch me, or you gonna come help?
Okay.
When you play it back in your mind, that sticks out in your head. I didn't really see anger. Maybe I was just blinded at that time, but I didn't see that. She saw something completely different than I did.
I think
How am I gonna put this? You gotta flip it.
You handed it to me this way.
Looking back now, I definitely feel like she was onto something. And then I learned later by reading her diary that she always had a feeling about him, that something wasn't right. This is Kara's diary. On this page, it says, I don't like Greg. Mom's obsessed with him. Something doesn't seem right about Greg. And they're talking about getting married. I don't want to call him Dad. It's like everyone loves him but me. It just doesn't seem like he's, I can't even explain it. I never knew, this is how she felt. I don't really remember her, really expressing that she didn't like him or didn't want to be around him. It does make me think and question why she felt like, she couldn't come to me. I just wish that I was able at that time to, talk more with her about her feelings. Looking back now, she just knew something was off with him.
I don't like what I've done. I'm gonna have nightmares. I know I'm gonna have bad thoughts, dreams.
It's gonna be hard for me to bear, man.
Corey was born October 28th, 2010. And when Corey was born, Greg was really happy, but it didn't last long. We got married in December of 2010, and I talked to my dad about it. And he said that he was okay with it, long as we went to counseling. It was a standard thing in my dad's church that, if you wanted to get married, you're supposed to go through a year of counseling. At that time, after having the conversation, my dad didn't say anything else to me. He didn't have any questions or concerns. When I think back, I feel like my dad should have said something. We got married, and we did go to counseling for a little bit, but then he seemed like he was just so detached. I think by having children definitely triggered something in Greg. He always said he wanted kids. Maybe Greg thought he wanted kids, and then when we started having children, maybe Greg felt like, maybe this isn't what I want. I felt like he was going through something. I don't know what it was, but he didn't want to talk about it. I don't know what he was struggling with, but it worried me. I was actually planning to leave him until I found out I was pregnant again. So then I was like, well, I'm gonna try to make it work. Kaylee was born September 5th, 2012. After I had Kaylee, he was acting strange, even like when I was in the hospital. And then once I brought Kaylee home, he just didn't really want anything to do with her.
I know. I'm coming, little baby.
He just was distant.
Greg, can you help me? At least see if one of them needs to be changed? Greg!
When I asked him, like, what's wrong? He said he wanted a boy. And I'm like, well, you have a girl. Be happy. She's healthy. And there's nothing wrong with her. So, we're going to just love her anyway.
Are you even listening to me? Hello?
Even though it bothered me, I just said I'll just, give him his space and let him be. Looking back at Greg's behavior now, it's definitely a red flag because there was just like personality changes.
Fine.
Not really knowing like who you're dealing with, if that makes sense. I started seeing changes, things that I was uncomfortable with, and I didn't understand why they were happening. I remember one time Kaylee came into the room with a loaf of bread because she wanted bread and butter. So I said, well, give me a minute, because I was in the middle of doing something. I said, go put the bread back on the counter, and I'll be in there in just a second to make you a sandwich. So when I come into the kitchen, she smushed the bread.
What the hell is this? Did you do this? Answer me.
So next thing I know, he just takes his hand and like backslaps the crap like out of her thigh. Like it was so loud.
Use your brain. Think before you do things.
There was times he was just mean to her.
Hey! What the hell is wrong with you?
She just took off running into her room, and I just remember just going off and cursing at him.
If you ever hit her like that again, I'm taking these girls and we leaving.
And I remember Coy was sitting there. She was really, really scared. She felt his anger. I know she didn't like seeing him when his temper would come out. I know that really made her, scared. She just stood there thinking back about what happened. I definitely feel like Coy probably seen his anger before.
Don't be scared, okay?
Sometimes I would just catch her, just sitting, biting her nails. That was her go-to habit. I definitely think by her biting her nails that Coy was scared of her father's temper, because prior to that, she wasn't biting her nails. He never apologized. I don't ever remember him saying sorry. I was thinking about getting all of us counseling because I felt like you can't really stay in a bad situation. I think I wanted to leave, but I couldn't leave. And I just said, I'm just going to save money so I can move. That was the beginning part for me to start preparing to leave. I remember coming home from work, and immediately, as soon as I opened the door, I smell gas. And you can see the stove, and I see the knobs are turned. And I'm thinking in my head, like, what the heck is going on? And I'm thinking, like, can he not smell the gas? Because I'm like, I can smell it coming into the house.
What is going on around here?
He's in the living room. He was just sitting on the couch, like, just sitting there. I'm like, how can you sit there with gas smelling? And then he tried to say, well, maybe Kara left it, turned the knob on, or maybe Coy did it.
They all know not to touch that stove.
He just was trying to insinuate that the kids were doing this. And I'm like, no, it couldn't have been.
What are you talking about, Greg? You're not making any sense.
And then after, going back and forth, then he was like, well, I turned the gas on. And he had said to me that he was, thinking about killing himself.
I just think it's better to end it all anyways.
And I'm like, why would you do that? What's so bad, that you want to kill yourself? I tried to get him to explain more, but he wouldn't. I didn't even know what to think or say, so I just tried to be calm. That really scared me, because I was thinking, what if I came home, the house blew up already?
If you don't want to be here, then fine.
And I'm like, if you want to do something like that, go somewhere else and do it, not with our kids.
What if the girls got sick from it? Huh? Do you even care about that?
That wasn't even a concern to him. Whatever he was thinking in his head, he didn't care. What do I do now? After the gas incident, I couldn't sleep. At this point, I feel like, things are getting out of control. It was even more clear, that I needed to leave. I just wish I had a chance to leave sooner. Looking back, I definitely think that day with the gas, that was Gregory's first attempt of putting plans into motion. We had decided to take the kids to the water park. We just took the girls with us. The older two wanted to do something different, so we just took the little ones with us. Just Coy and Kaylee. We're there, we're having a good time. So we're at breakfast, and then he says to me, you know what? What if it was just the four of us?
It would be nice if it was like this always, don't you think?
What you mean?
If it could just be us four together.
When Gregory said that he just meant the girls and I and him without Kara and Chadney, I just kind of look at him like, oh, it's not the four of us. Why would you say that?
What about Kara and Chadney?
These are my children, not going anywhere.
What you want me to do with them? Just send them away?
I think he didn't want Kara around. Kara was just the type, she didn't hold her tongue for anything. She always voiced her opinion. But it was a little different with Chadney. Chadney was older. He always seemed like he liked Chadney. So my son really took a liking to him. When Gregory said that he wanted it to be just the four of us, it really bothered me. I couldn't understand him even asking me that. How dare you? I was very offended.
There's 6 of us, not 4.
And basically, I just told him, get that out of your head, because it's the 6 of us.
Just understand that we are all a family.
He didn't like that response. I didn't really know at the time what that was about. But looking back, I definitely think that Greg was coming up with a plan, so it could be just the 4 of us. As time went on, Gregory proceeded to get angrier and angrier. It was getting worse.
We're supposed to be in this together.
When he got to the point where he knew we were drifting apart, that's when it seemed like his anger would escalate even more.
I can't raise 4 kids by myself.
I told you, leave me alone, Faye.
And I just remember him just getting in my face, and I'm back against the wall.
Just shut up!
Ray, stop!
Another time, He wakes me up when I'm asleep, preventing me from sleeping. That was a form of torment. I did feel fearful one night. I remember I was sleeping in the bed, and I remember having my bathrobe on. I just said, well, just to protect myself, I'm gonna put these pencils in my bathrobe pocket. If Gregory was to do something to me and like wake me up out my sleep and, try to grab me, then I have these pencils to jab him with. That night I felt like he could have got physical. After that, I knew I had to leave. It was just one thing after the next. The more it happened, the more I would think, this is not what I signed up for. I know that I couldn't stay there. I just got a vibe from him, and I was just like, I need to leave. The kids were like, Mom, when are we leaving? And I just kept reassuring them that on the last day of school, we're leaving. We packed the house up probably within 2 hours and left. And I called Greg to let him know that I had moved out. I remember him being mad, and I think he hung up on me, and then the next thing I knew, he turned off our cell phones.
I told him, I said, look, I can't change it now. I can't turn back. This is it. I told him, I'm sorry I have to go through with this. That's what I was telling him.
Greg and I were separated probably about 2 years. So it'd been, some time that we hadn't been together. Gregory reached out to me stating that, he wanted to see the girls. But when we first decided to meet up, he wanted to meet in like isolated places where it was like nobody there. That definitely made me uncomfortable. And I remember looking around one day like, there's nobody here. He keeps trying to pick places where nobody's at. And I did have the thought like, what if something was to happen? I didn't trust Greg. If Gregory wanted to do something to me or to the girls, no one would see anything. At one point, he did make me feel like he was gonna take them.
Mommy, where's Daddy?
I don't know, honey.
So I decided to, make a change, and I found a place where Gregory and I could meet in a shopping plaza because there's a lot of people around. Once I changed the location, I felt a lot more safer. But Greg was spiraling out of control, and I just didn't know how bad it was. Before everything was finalized, he was trying to communicate more. He was talking to me more. So that's how it started. He definitely seemed calmer. Like he was trying to be more patient, more loving. He wanted all of us to be a family, sound really convincing. I felt like he was gonna make an effort, a true effort this time. We were thinking about trying to work things out, and we stopped the divorce. We moved back together. But after a couple of months, and I can see that he wasn't adjusting well. It was almost like either he's high or he's low. There's no balancing with him. So either he's super happy or he's gonna be super angry. He made me feel like he had changed when he really didn't. I just wanted to get me and the kids out of there. This was going to be final. There was nothing that he can do. My final decision was to leave him. I just never got that chance. He wakes me up when I'm asleep.
Hey, get up!
He's like, you need to come in the living room. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, ugh. I'm like, what do you want? I'm like, I don't want to come in the living room.
Just leave me alone. I said, get up!
And then he said it again, but it was the tone of his voice, the way he said it. And it was like, I know I needed to come in the living room.
Keep walking.
So I get up, and then when I come in there, my son is standing by the table. He pulls out a big bag of zip ties, probably like big like this. And he proceeds to tell my son, like, I want you to put these on your mom.
Turn around, put your hands behind you.
My son was like, wait, Greg, wait.
Can we talk about that? Tie her up!
And then that's when Greg pulls a gun out. He's just like, man, just do what I said.
I said, tie her up!
Chadney puts the zip ties, behind my back. And I'm just quiet. I don't know if I just went into shock immediately. And I just kept thinking, like, if I'm calm, then they'll be calm, because I didn't really know what else to do. I just didn't want him to shoot my son. So then he put the zip ties on Chadney too, like hands behind the back. At that moment, I didn't think he was gonna shoot us or do anything like that. I just really thought he was gonna take the girls and leave. That's what I was thinking in my mind. So we just complied. So then Kira comes into the living room. I can tell she was startled. I'm like looking at her, I couldn't say anything, like I was just frozen. So then, she sits down on the couch and then he zip tied her too. We're sitting there and next thing I know, he's like, go to the basement. At that moment, I just thought that if I interjected, that's gonna make him mad. And then what if he goes off and starts shooting everybody else, shoot the girls? So I just told Chadney, just do what he says. So we proceed to go to the basement. We had to lay on the ground. Duct tape around our wrists. Duct tape around our ankles. At one point, he leaves the basement, going back to the garage. I didn't know what he was doing in the garage. So me and Chadney were talking to each other and trying to come up with a plan, how we can get these zip ties and tape off.
Chad, can you get your hands free?
And I was like, if we can get free, there's a phone in the basement and we can call 911.
Can't, it's too tight.
And then he comes back. This time he turns the lights off. And it was dark down there, but the laundry room light was on, so it wasn't completely dark. Because you're just not sure, what he's gonna do. He's not yelling. He's still talking pretty calm. And he says that he doesn't want his girls to be raised by anybody in my family, and he didn't want them to be influenced by Kara.
I'm gonna make you pay.
He was like, I'm gonna suffer for what I did to him and his girls. And then I remember hearing the gun cock. But he didn't do anything. I think he was thinking about shooting me, but he didn't. I think what he was doing was trying to build himself up to do this. Then he says to me, do you want to see the girls? So I'm shaking my head, yes, I want to see them. I thought the girls were safe while this was going on. I just thought they were still in their bed sleeping. And next thing I know, he immediately shot my daughter 2 times. I remember screaming. She looked at me like, Mom, and then it was just, her spitting up blood, gurgling, Then she turned her head and it's like, you never forget that sound, like gasping for air and not being able to do anything. There was nothing I can do because we're all tied up. There was no way for me to move or try to do anything. Then at some point he shot my son, and I remember my son just saying, ow, and then rolling over. And he never moved again, never said anything. Then that's when he raised the gun to me. He shot me in my foot. I didn't feel that shot, but he shot at me a second time. That's what I felt. I felt the burn. And then the next thing I know, he came to me and held my face and slashed me from side to side with the box cutter. And I remember seeing blood squirt, feeling just a whole bunch of warmth. And it was just kind of like, you're in shock. But I think my body just went into immediate shutdown. The only thing I felt was the warmth of the blood, soaking through my clothes. He threw the box cutter down, and he sat the gun on a stool, and then I can hear him calling 911.
Gregory, what's going on?
Yes, I killed some people in my family.
Tell me what happened.
I shot Kara and Johnny. My 2 stepkids, they're both dead.
I remember just laying there, leaning back, holding my breath. It felt like the longest hours in my life, even though it wasn't that long.
And my wife, it was thanks to her, I did what I did. She's a piece of work. She kept pushing the issue.
Next thing I know, the police are knocking on the door. They're announcing themselves, saying, this is the police. If anybody's here, let me know. And I'm like, I'm here. And they're like, come up. I'm like, I can't. I was like, he has me tied up.
She was the only one that survived. I cut her up.
Okay.
I cut her face.
Somebody came, and I remember it was a guy there trying to take the duct tape and the zip ties off. And then he was trying to find out where I was bleeding from and trying to stop it, but they couldn't really tell because there was so much blood. And then, they put me in the EMS truck and took me to the hospital.
I just want to turn myself in. I know I'm going to prison for the rest of my life, and I deserve that. I felt overwhelmed and anger turned into hatred, for her. That's the only thing that had driven me to do what I did. I didn't want to. I tried to fight it. I just got fed up.
In the hospital, it was like a blur. When I came to, I thought that my girls were still alive. It was around then where somebody explained to me what had happened to my girls. He killed them by carbon monoxide poisoning.
I hooked some to the exhaust.
Some sort of
like a tube. Yeah, put it in the window.
I found out that Greg had, took them one by one out of their beds and placed them in the car, in the garage.
They were already asleep and everything. I just comforted them and made sure they was comfortable in there. Just laid them down and stuff.
But I do remember saying to people a lot, I need you to repeat that. I don't know what you're saying to me. It wasn't sinking in.
I left them and I check on them. I checked on them several times.
Did they look like they were sleeping?
Yeah. They looked peaceful.
He knew I loved my kids more than I loved him. And, my kids were my world, so he wanted to take that away from me and hurt me. And plus, he knew I couldn't have kids after that. I just had a permanent procedure so I wouldn't have children. He wanted to do this to hurt me and scar me.
Did you intend on killing Clay?
That night?
Yeah.
No.
No? Can we ask why?
Because I wanted her to see what she did.
Okay.
And to live with it. It's like I gotta live with it.
I don't remember who I was talking to. I just remember them asking me if I wanted to see my girls. And it became even more real once they wheeled me into their room.
I know people are gonna say, well, if you love her, if you love her children, how could you do that? They're going off to heaven, and I believe they're going to be with the Lord.
I just saw how Chloe was just, sleeping there with her glasses, and she was, so cold. I held her hand. When I went to see Kaylee, she was warm because she was the last to go.
What kind of person does that to their own children?
Anything we can do for you, Vic?
Put me out of my misery.
I just never wanted to wake up. I just wanted to go to sleep and never wake up again. I couldn't really do anything but cry. Not long after seeing my girls, that's when I learned the truth about what Gregory had done to his previous wife. The whole self-defense story was a lie. His ex-wife was like 6, 7 months pregnant, and he stabbed her multiple times. And I couldn't even read the whole story because it was just so sickening. I just couldn't believe this. It just felt like being in a nightmare. My dad helped Greg reintegrate when he got out of prison. I did eventually ask my dad, like, did he know? He just was saying that he didn't know the whole story. And he said that Greg had came to him and said that he accidentally killed his wife. And in my head, I'm thinking, like, why didn't you ever, like, mention this to me? I wouldn't have married him if you told me it wasn't okay to marry him. This is a letter that my dad wrote when Greg was up for parole. And this is something that I knew nothing about until after my kids had passed. It says, "Dear Parole Board, I greet you in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I'm writing this letter in support of Gregory Green. Gregory was attending our church before he was sentenced to prison. While interacting with Gregory, I've noticed a great deal of growth, and his understanding has matured quite a bit. If he was to be released, he would be welcome as a part of our church community, and whatever we could do to help him adjust, we would." It does hurt. I don't even know how to feel about my dad. I'm not here to like bash him or anything. At this point in my life, I don't really deal with my dad. I don't really know how I should feel about him. I know it bothers him. I tried to get my dad to talk to me about it. You should be able to tell me how you feel on the inside. I guess he's struggling. He can't tell me. In the end, I feel like Gregory deceived our whole family as well as my dad.
I told Johnny to tie his mother, and then, I tied him. And then I tied Karen when she came out, and then I told her we're going to take a trip down in the basement. She was like, calm, wasn't saying nothing. She didn't try to beg or plead or nothing like that. When I got ready to shoot them, she screamed out, "Don't," or "Stop," or "Don't," or something, I don't know. But she didn't really seem like she started crying until I shot Karen. I got shot Karen first.
How many times did you shoot Shakira?
I think 3. Right here. And then she looked like she was like suffering, trying to breathe and a lot of blood and stuff. So I just shot her here, put her out. And then Chadney, I shot him.
Shot Chadney?
Mm-hmm.
How many times?
I think 3.
2 in the chest?
Yeah, and from the back side. They was laying on his stomach. And I picked her up to watch it, Sat on the couch, and I just slit her face a couple times. I figured killing would be too easy. Remember this. She just screamed a little bit, jumped back. I always thought she favored Kara and Johnny, but especially Kara over our kids, and I ain't like that. I'll sign a confession or whatever, man. I did what I did, All I know is it's over now, man. I already know the consequences, man. I have to deal with that, the rest of my life.
I don't think you ever really get past any of it. Just learn how to cope with it better. Some days are okay and other days are like hell. I miss them every day. You miss their kisses, their hugs, hearing them talk and play together, watching them grow. You miss everything that you had before. Chadney graduated from a media arts school. He did graphic design. He wanted to make movies. And he would always give me like tight hugs. I really miss that. I just thought he was so handsome and, you know, very articulate and very smart guy. Life was just beginning for him. Jenny was always introverted, but Kara was different. She was very social, like her mom. She loved making new friends, going places. She definitely had a lot to look forward to. She tried to be in any and everything that she could be in. On this particular page, it says, when I get older, I want to be a singer, veterinarian, pediatrician, fashion designer, including shoes, hair, nails. I also might want to have my own business to be continued. Sincerely, Kira Allen. Coy and Kaylee, they were partners in crime. When I went to the beach, I wrote their names in the sand. Rest in heaven. I know you always wanted to go on vacation to a really nice beach, so I'm at Cocoa Beach for the both of you. I love you always. Love, Mom. And that was me talking to them to let them know that I still love them. It's been rough, really rough. You know, we have to learn the signs of abnormal behavior. We get so used to it, you know, and that's what I went through with Greg. I would just say, you know, he's always having a bad day, or, you know, he's going through this or that, or because dysfunction is kind of like the new normal, you know, so we got to learn the signs. I just plan to keep pushing and to do things to keep my children's legacy alive. In the future, I'm going to do things for them and make them happy, even though, you know, they're not here, but I know they would want me to be happy and not give up.